Imagine a base so remote, so heavily fortified, so deliberately hidden in the middle of the Indian Ocean, that for decades, military strategists considered it completely untouchable. No enemy missile could reach it. No adversary even dared to try. The Americans built it that way on purpose. They called it the footprint of freedom. And for 50 years, that footprint remained unchallenged. Then, on March 20th, 2026, Iran fired 2 ballistic missiles directly at it, 4,000 kilometers, from Iranian soil across the Arabian Sea, deep into the Indian Ocean, aimed at a tiny coral island that most people couldn't find on a map. The world held its breath, because if Iran could reach Diego Garcia, then nothing is truly out of reach anymore. This is the story of the most audacious missile launch in Iran's history. What happened, what it means, and why the entire world should be paying attention. Diego Garcia is part of the Chagos Islands, a remote archipelago sitting in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It is strategically significant because of its central location and its role as a major joint military base operated by the United States and the United Kingdom. Often called the footprint of freedom, it serves as the United States' only permanent military installation in the entire Indian Ocean. This base is not just a dot on the map, it is an empire of military power compressed onto a coral atoll. The base provides air and naval support facilities that have been used in every major U.S. military operation, from the Persian Gulf War in 1990 to the strikes on Afghanistan in 2001 and the initial phase of the Iraq War in 2003. In 2024 and 2025, the U.S. used the base to launch operations against the Houthis in Yemen, and just before the Iran crisis exploded, U.S. Air Force B-2 Spirit stealth bombers were taking off on combat missions directly from Diego Garcia. This base is the crown jewel of American power projection in the Indo-Pacific, and that is precisely why Iran targeted it. To understand why this strike matters, you have to understand the context in which it happened, because this was not some random provocation. This was the product of a war that had been building for years and exploded in early 2026. After the Middle Eastern crisis began in 2023, Iran and Israel exchanged missile strikes in 2024 and again during the 12-day war in June 2025, which resulted in a devastating U.S. airstrike on Iranian nuclear sites. On June 22, 2025, the United States Air Force and Navy attacked 3 nuclear sites in Iran: the Fordo Uranium Enrichment Plant, the Natanz Nuclear Facility, and the Isfahan Nuclear Technology Center. These were struck using the most powerful conventional bombs ever built, 30,000-pound bunker busters dropped by B-2 stealth bombers. The Americans called it Operation Midnight Hammer. Iran called it an act of war. In retaliation, Iran launched missiles at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar on June 23, 2025, Iran's second direct attack on a U.S. base since 2020. Satellite images revealed noticeable damage to the radar dome at Al Udeid, and the Pentagon confirmed that a missile had struck the radar system. Then came 2026. In January, Iranian security forces massacred thousands of civilians in a crackdown on the largest protests inside Iran since 1979. U.S. President Donald Trump responded by threatening military action and initiating the largest American military buildup in the region since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. On February 28, 2026, the U.S. and Israel launched simultaneous joint military campaigns, Operation Epic Fury and Operation Roaring Lion, targeting Iranian military infrastructure, missile sites, and strategic assets. Iran was now in an open war with the most powerful military alliance on the planet, and it responded in a way nobody expected. On March 20th, 2026, Iran attempted its farthest strike in history, firing 2 intermediate-range ballistic missiles toward the joint US-UK military base on Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, approximately 4,000 kilometers from Iranian territory. 4,000 kilometers. To put that in perspective, that is roughly the distance from London to Cairo, from New York to Los Angeles and back. It is a distance that Iran had never demonstrated the ability to strike before. In fact, Iran had long maintained a self-imposed missile range limit of 2,000 kilometers. The world had taken that declaration at face value. The defense analysts, the intelligence agencies, the think tanks, almost everyone assumed Diego Garcia was safe. They were wrong. Iran's semi-official Mehr News agency confirmed the attempted strike, boasting that targeting the base was a significant step, showing that the range of Iran's missiles is beyond what the enemy had previously imagined. One of the 2 missiles failed in flight. The other was intercepted by a U.S. Navy warship. No damage was reported at the base. But make no mistake, the fact that the missiles were intercepted or malfunctioned does not reduce the significance of what just happened. Iran just told the world, "We can try to reach your most remote base, and next time, we might not miss." Now let's talk about the military reality of what Iran has just demonstrated, because this is where the story becomes truly alarming. This represents the longest-range missile operation in Iran's history, far exceeding its publicly declared limit of around 2,000 kilometers. And analysts immediately pointed out what this means for Europe. IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Ayel Zamir confirmed it directly. Iran launched a two-stage ballistic missile with a range of 4,000 kilometers toward an American target on Diego Garcia. And at that same range, the capitals of Europe, Berlin, Paris, and Rome, are all within direct threat range. Read that again. European capitals. This is a seismic shift in the global threat landscape. For years, NATO's European members operated under the assumption that Iran's missiles were a Middle Eastern problem. A problem for Israel, for the Gulf states, for American bases in Iraq and Qatar. Not their problem, not their continent. That assumption has just been shattered. While the missiles failed to impact the target, the demonstration of a 4,000-kilometer range redefined the regional and global security map. This capability transitioned the threat from a regional concern focused on the Persian Gulf and Israel to a continental one. The technical shift from medium-range to intermediate-range ballistic missiles suggested a strategic leap, intended to establish a broader radius of deterrence and fear. A Defense Intelligence Agency assessment from 2025 had warned that Iran could develop a militarily viable intercontinental ballistic missile by 2035, should Tehran decide to pursue that capability. But Iran didn't wait until 2035. They are moving faster than Western intelligence had anticipated, and that is a serious problem. Analysts are now asking a deeply uncomfortable question. If Iran secretly developed a 4,000-kilometer missile while the world wasn't looking, what else is it hiding? Now here is what the experts are saying about the strategic intent behind this strike. Because this was not just about military capability, it was about psychology, it was about sending a message. Iran knew those missiles had a low probability of penetrating American air defenses over such a distance. It knew one might fail in flight. It fired them anyway, because the message was more important than the result. The message was this: we can reach you anywhere. We can reach your hidden bases. We can reach your unsinkable aircraft carriers on land. And if you keep bombing us, we will keep extending our reach. By targeting a remote and heavily defended installation like Diego Garcia, Iran signaled its ability to project power far beyond its immediate borders, challenging the maritime and aerial security architecture of the Indian Ocean and threatening the sense of safety that Europe has long taken for granted. This is deterrence through demonstration. It is a page taken directly from the Cold War playbook, except now it is Iran playing the role of the rising revisionist power, pushing against the boundaries of Western dominance. Iranian state media made no attempt to hide the intent. They celebrated the launch as proof that Iran's missile range is beyond what the enemy previously imagined. This was not an accident. This was theater. Dangerous escalatory theater, but theater with a clear and calculated message. So what does this mean for the average person watching the news, wondering how worried they should actually be? Here is the honest answer. The world just became measurably more dangerous. Diego Garcia has been the launchpad for American military power for 50 years. It has been the backstop of U.S. operations across 3 continents. It has been the one place every U.S. military commander knew they could always fall back on, refuel, rearm, and strike again. It was built to be safe precisely because it was unreachable. Iran just proved it can reach that place, barely, imperfectly, with missiles that failed or were shot down, but it reached. The missile failure may indicate that Iran is attempting to operate these systems at distances it is not yet reliably capable of. That word, yet, is the most important word in this entire story. Because missile programs improve, ranges extend, accuracy increases. What Iran cannot reliably do today, it may be able to do far more effectively in 3, 4, or 5 years. The United States and its allies now face a question they have never had to seriously ask before. How do you defend a base that was built specifically because it was unreachable? What is your contingency when your most remote fallback position is no longer remote enough? These are not theoretical questions. They are operational realities that American military planners are working through right now, in Pentagon war rooms, in NATO headquarters, in British Defense Ministry briefings. The strike on Diego Garcia is one of the most strategically significant military events of the past decade, not because of the damage it caused, which was zero, but because of the capability it revealed and the world it announces is coming. A world where the oceans no longer provide automatic protection, a world where remote bases are no longer automatically safe, a world where a country like Iran, under maximum military pressure, under the weight of devastating airstrikes on its nuclear program, does not collapse, it innovates, it escalates, and it extends its reach. Diego Garcia has supported U.S. military operations from Vietnam to Iraq, from Afghanistan to Yemen. It has been the quiet constant in every American military operation for half a century, and now, for the first time, it is on the receiving end of a missile attack. The footprint of freedom is no longer untouchable. The age of safe distances is over, and the world's military planners, in Washington, in London, in Beijing, in Moscow, are all drawing the same conclusion from the same event.